of the empowerment. There are some which say if you're interested in the worldly attainments, then that's the main focus in a certain number of them. And if you're interested in the highest attainment, which is Buddhahood, then you focus on the others. That's a little bit difficult to understand, I must say, because there's no way of attending the initiation unless you're interested in enlightenment, the highest attainments. So all that you can say for understanding that is, where do you want to have your focus? And so the ordinary attainments are having the various extrasensory and extra-physical abilities to help others. And the highest attainment is enlightenment, which would encompass that and more. But I really wouldn't make a big deal out of the difference between the two. It's just sort of on the way. Now, there's no guarantee that Holiness is even going to get the higher or highest empowerment. So we have to wait and see.
Okay, so
but everything, the main point is if you're going to take the empowerment, that requires taking Bodhisattva and Tantric vows. Bodhisattva and Tantric vows cannot be taken with an aim of just the worldly attainments. So that's why the whole presentation of that differentiation can't really be taken too literally. So either you want to achieve enlightenment to help everybody, so you would take the Bodhisattva and Tantric vows, or at least the Bodhisattva vows, but without being willing to not just take, but to try to keep as much as possible all the vows, then it's not appropriate to think that you've received the initiation. You haven't received the initiation. Sakya Pandita says very clearly, unless you take the vows, you haven't actually received the empowerment. And take it means I'm going to try to keep them.
what are the
What are the vows? There's a long, long list of them, and you can find them in the book that I've been taking, the Kalachakra initiation.
Can we take just those two?
You, within the lay vows, which are not necessarily being specifically given, although they might be, which is to avoid taking life, taking what's not given, so stealing, buying inappropriate sexual behavior, and taking intoxicants. From among those, you can take 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. But within the Bodhisattva and Tantric vows, it's basically all or nothing. Yeah.
Regarding chakras.
Regarding what?
Regarding the chakras.
Chakras.
Yes. That might be the only one here, so it may not be worth answering. Is there any, that's the main introductory thing you can tell us about chakras in the initiation that you think is necessary, or if we don't know about our chakras, that then you tell us we don't need to know that during the initiation?
The question is about the chakras, and what would we need to know about the chakras in order to understand what's going on
Yeah, not the
in
detail.
the empowerment. You certainly don't have to know anything in detail about the anatomy of the chakras and what they look like and all of that. There are several systems of chakras. There's one in general Anuttara Yoga Tantra, one in Kalachakra. There's not a short answer to this, but let me try to make it short, which is that what we're trying to do with Anuttara Yoga Tantra, the highest class of Tantra, is to achieve enlightenment to benefit everybody, obviously, but in the most efficient way. And the level of mind that a Buddha has is exclusively the subtlest level, the clear light level. And so, and that level has many benefits because it automatically is more subtle just by what it is than all the other levels of mind. All the other levels of mind are the levels of mind at which we have the appearance making of true findable existence and the believing in it, grasping at it to correspond to reality. So all of that, grasping at it to correspond to reality, is what causes our suffering. And the appearance making, the mind makes this hologram, very limited, of everything being basically encapsulated in some solid plastic or a line around it. Big entity like that out there appearing from its own side, that limits our perception of everything. It's like looking through a periscope. And so we can't really know all the beginningless time karmic causes for why somebody is where they are now. And we wouldn't know if we taught them something, what would be the consequences from now till forever, basically, in terms of on that person and on everybody that they interact, having been affected by what we taught them. So only Buddha could know that. You can't know that if you're looking through a periscope. And so what we want is to get rid of that level of mind where it makes these appearances of findable existence, these entities out there. Now, to do that, we have to dissolve the grosser levels. And to dissolve the grosser levels, we can do it in several ways, but the way that's done in Kalachakra is to basically dissolve the energy winds, which are another way of looking at the energy involved with ways of being aware of things, with different levels of mind. Dissolve them not just simply into the heart chakra, as is done in other Yoga Tantras, but they are dissolved into the 6 major chakras, so it's slightly different. Now, it's good for you to know this, so I'll explain it. It's going to come up over and over and over again in the empowerment, is that look at what is Kalachakra. Now I can bring in the talk that I was going to give. You look at what is Kalachakra. Kala means time, literally. And time here can be, obviously this can be explained in many, many different ways. But one of the ways His Holiness likes to explain it, but we may not explain it this time that way, is that it refers to the clear light state of mind. And now remember, we're not talking about some great universal mind. We're talking about everybody's individual clear light level of mind that is not limited by time, because it has no beginning and no end. Now, cycles of time, cycles is referring to the appearances that are basically made by the subtlest energy of that. And so these appearances are like the mental holograms that we perceive, because actually everybody sees something different, because we're looking from different angles, different attitudes, and stuff like that. So it's like a mental hologram. Now, those appearances can be either with an appearance of true existence, mindful existence, or without. Those are pure and impure appearances. And if you grasp at those impure appearances to correspond to reality, then you have samsara. So in general, they're called samsara, the appearances of samsara, and the appearances of nirvana. Now, those, the impure appearances of true mindful existence occur, our perception of them And the way that we experience them are external and internal. And so there are the external cycles, the external Kalachakra and the internal Kalachakra. And what we want to do is get clear light mind to stop projecting these, encapsulating things. And that doesn't mean that if the mind were to stop doing that, everything becomes an undifferentiated soup. Not at all. But things aren't isolated into entities that couldn't possibly interact with each other. Cause and effect, these sort of things couldn't operate. Okay, so in order to get the mind to stop doing that, clear light mind to stop doing that, you need to get rid of the causes that make it do that. And the causes that make it do that are the habits of the mind believing in these things. Because of those strong habits that have been going on with no beginning, our mind does that every single moment, except when we are totally absorbed on voidness, non-conceptually. So, the longer we can stay totally absorbed on voidness, non-conceptually, then we break more and more the momentum of the mind projecting this garbage. And eventually, as a Buddha, we're able to stay with this total absorption on voidness all the time and still deal with and perceive appearances without the encapsulation. Because the clear light mind can do that. No other level of mind can do that. So, you want to purify. This is what purify means. It doesn't mean to clean it. It means to get rid of it. Now, how are the samsaric appearances, the impure appearances, made? What's the mechanism? And the mechanism, remember that we're talking about what makes the hologram and the mental hologram. The stuff that makes the mental hologram is the subtlest energy wind, it's called. And so the subtlest energy wind can be either karmic winds, they're called. So basically the ones that are going to make appearances of true existence, encapsulate things, or pure ones, without that. Now, pure ones, without that, that don't do that, that are not under the force of karma, but under the force of compassion and bodhicitta, the understanding of avoidance. All right, now, what are these holograms going to be, in a sense, projected on? Well, they have to be very careful in terms of the understanding of voidness here. But basically, the 6 elements. And so these are the elements of earth, water, fire, wind or air, space, and deep awareness, it's called. So those are like, Kalachakra speaks a great deal about atoms, the smallest particles. And each of these are a different sized particle, basically, going into further and further sub-particles, these 6 elements. Now, that is what sort of the background, in a sense, on or the stuff in conjunction with the energy wind that composes the mental holograms. Now, there are 4 occasions in which we make mental holograms. And so these are the occasions of when we're awake, when we're dreaming, when we are in deep sleep with no appearance, just appearance of darkness, and the 4th occasion, which is the occasion of basically extreme bliss. So when we talk about appearances, we're talking about the appearance of an experience. We're not talking about the appearance of something visual. And so the appearance is arising, this mental hologram of being very blissful, which ordinarily we might experience with an orgasm, for example. Now, there are 4 subtle drops. Well, there's 2 sets, but anyway, there's 4 subtle drops that are in 4 of the chakras, and then a couple of them overlap, and then there's another set of 4. And it's almost like these are paint buckets, and the karmic winds pass through one or another of these paint buckets and sort of dip their brush into the paint bucket of that for that occasion, and then go out through that drop and paint the 6 type of atoms to make the mental hologram. Okay, so there is a great deal of, it's going to appear over and over and over again in the empowerment, practice, in everywhere, this dealing with the purification of these 4 drops, 4 subtle drops, which is sometimes called the body, speech, mind, and deep awareness drops. The main ones are at the middle of the forehead, the throat, the heart, and the navel. And you can put all sorts of seed syllables there, and various empowerments, and you can purify them, and so on. And basically, you don't want to clean them so that they are going to produce the 4 Buddha bodies. You want to get rid of them. They're part of the samsaric body, so that as a substitute for them, in analogy to them, you get the 4 Buddha bodies. Now, as I said, we're dealing with 6 types of atoms, or particles, and these 4 drops. And so the 6 types of atoms, in order to try to purify these winds that are going to paint each of these type of atoms, then you deal with the 6 chakras. And so we're going to have lots of various seed syllables and things on the 6 chakras, which are going to represent purifying karmic winds going through the 4 drops and painting on the 6 type of atoms, or particles. So this, in a way, is to understand why we're always having all these seed syllables, why we're having all this stuff with the chakras. That's what it's all about. To try to get the energy, the karmic winds, to purify the karmic winds, to get rid of them, so that they're not going through all this process of making mental holograms of things encapsulated, truly and finally existent, and instead to make the mental holograms of everything being totally interdependent and dependent arising that Buddha would perceive, and that would represent, or not represent, be involved with how a Buddha manifests everywhere and understands everything. That's the short answer. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Louder.
During the what? Yeah. It was what? The question is about the Buddha families, and at various points in the empowerment preparation and the empowerment itself, there's going to be the tossing of a stick or these little flowers and stuff in a special type of little mandala to see which Buddha family or which Jnani Buddha, or however you want to look at it, there is an affiliation with, or we get a name with, and like that. First of all, we need to understand what is a Buddha family. Buddha family is referring to one aspect of Buddha nature. Family is short for a family trait, or family characteristic of those who are in the family of beings who can achieve Buddhahood. That means everybody. And we can speak of there's one Buddha family, 3 Buddha families, 4, 5, 6, 100 Buddha families. And we have all the characteristics, all these aspects of Buddha nature, of all these families. They're represented by the various figures and the colors and so on within the mandala. I think it's important not to be too superstitious about that. Remember that most people are going to take empowerment so many times during their lifetime. So of course, in every empowerment, the stick's going to go in another direction, and you get another name, and so on. So it is perhaps indicating within these Buddha family traits, at this particular moment, what would be helpful to work on. Now, we can understand, let's speak just in terms of the 5 Buddha family traits. The most common presentation of them is one of 2 ways. Either they're referring to body, speech, mind, good qualities, and sometimes translated as Buddha activity, but actually I prefer enlightening influence because the Buddha isn't doing anything. By his way of being, everything, through his influence, everything works. Those 5. Within, so what do you want to emphasize? Within each of those 5, you can have 5. And the one that is the most frequently discussed is within the mind one. And so within the mind, you have the 5 types of, it's usually called Buddha wisdoms, or the 5 types of deep awareness. So the mirror light takes in all information, equalizing, which sees the patterns, how things fit together, individualizing, which is able to see individual differences, the accomplishing, which is to know how to relate, what to do, and the Dharmadatsu, or sphere of reality awareness, which knows the 2 truths about everything. So, and each of those, when they're overlaid with grasping for true existence, then you get a disturbing emotion. And like, for instance, rather than just individualizing something, you exaggerate its good qualities, and then you get attachment and desire. So it's sort of like that. Rather than seeing the quality of everybody, then you make yourself special. So arrogance, or I don't want to share, so miserliness. So it's like that. So this gives you an indication of which area might be the bean stick, or the flower might give an indication of which of these areas might be most helpful to work on. But it's like an astrology chart. Everybody who is Aries or Sagittarius from the newspaper can't possibly be exactly the same. So when it's done for everybody in the audience, take it with a grain of salt. But it gives some indication, so it's helpful. Yeah.
Can you tell us whether we should be concerned if we're not able to remember any dreams? Does it matter?
The question is, what happens if we can't remember our dreams tonight? Nothing happens. His Holiness says, tomorrow morning, don't make a big deal out of the dreams. You've had an auspicious one, an inauspicious one. Don't encapsulate it and make it into a findable big deal. Think in terms of its voidness, which means that it has arisen dependent on so many different things in one's past experience. And it might give some indication, but not necessarily.
a little bit about the Kalachakra deity, as well as his consort?
The question is to speak a little bit about the main Kalachakra couple. In Tantra, when we work with these Buddha figures, what we want to do on one level is to build up the causes for that are closer to the result in terms of the body of a Buddha, and have that simultaneously done while building up the causes for achieving the omniscient mind of the Buddha. It's based on having done a tremendous amount of sutra practice beforehand. So the question really is, how do you put everything together? I've worked with 6 far-reaching attitudes, bodhicitta, and voidness, and renunciation, and so many different things. The 37 of this, and I mean, all these different big lists of things that we trained with, concentration and so on in Sutra. And now what we want to do is try to do them all at the same time. That's why, from one point of view, Tantra really is very, very advanced, and to try to do it without Sutra is a bit silly, pretentious. At least some basic of the Sutra practice. I don't mean to scare people off, but one needs to not trivialize Tantra. You have respect for it. Don't trivialize it. It's very advanced and very difficult. And we can try, but don't fool yourself into it that you're actually doing it if we don't have the proper preparation. The things put together. How do you put them together? You don't have these things. How do you put them together? So, one of the aids for being able to do that is if we can represent these things graphically, then that helps us to keep them all in mind simultaneously. So, on one level, we can think of, 5 colored rainbows, 5 types of deep awareness, or 5 Buddha wisdoms, like that. We have various levels of representation. There's also many, many other levels. Because what you want to do here in Kalachakra is, as I said earlier, we want to purify, get rid of the mind's making appearances of true existence and then believing it. Now, how do you get rid of them? One of the ways, and so mind makes these mental holograms of these impure appearances, both external and internal, and the pure appearances. One way of doing this is to have a conceptual framework which encompasses these 3 occasions, which would allow us to work with them, to put it together. And so there's this whole conceptual framework which deals with the cycles of the planets, the cycles of units of time, the astrology cycles, externally the cycles of history, and then internally the cycles of the breath, and that's divided into certain numbers of it's not so important to go into all the details of it, but 12 groups of 1,800. So this type of thing is done in great detail. And similarly, you have the path and the result. That's the basis of what we want to purify. path and the result are on the purifying side. The result is the pure side. And that conceptual framework will help to organize that as well. And it refers to what we actually do on the path. So you have a description of the external and internal world that is parallel to the description of and the proportion and the numbers within the proportions of the mandala building, within the proportions of the Buddha figure, and within the numbers of breaths that you're working with during the day, and you want to purify on the complete stage practices of Kalachakra. Everything is parallel. It's only a conceptual framework, don't take it to, that it's really there, out there, coming from the side of, say, reality, as it were. Otherwise, you get real problems in terms of avoidance. So, many of the things in the Buddha figure, the numbers of arms, the numbers of figures, the numbers of groups, and so on, are going to be parallel to those numbers. Now, in general, we are the whole thing in terms of what's me in all of this. And the me is what can be imputed in terms of imputed, that's a technical word, jargon for most of us. But it is how you put together a continuum of awareness, moments of awareness, mental continuum, the mind stream, and all the mental holograms and everything that's going on with that make up our experience, the 5 agonies, the 6 agonies in the Kalachakra, another system of organizing. It doesn't really matter how you organize it, it's just a system. And, well, there are reasons for why it's a different system. It's not arbitrary by any means, but there are many ways of organizing our experience and understanding. So, these appearances, external, internal, and then the alternative type of appearances. We can understand them in terms of these different groups, and so these are the mental holograms that are being produced by the subtlest energy of that clear light level. So we could, how do you refer to all of this? We would say me. How do you experience all of this? We would say me. There isn't a separate me from all of this. But the me can be imputed or designated on it. You think of a very simple example, like there's a body sitting here on the chair, and I'm sitting on the chair. Well, are there two different things sitting on the chair? A body and a me sitting on the chair? Obviously not. Is the me the same as the body? Well, not quite, because there are also feelings, emotions, mind, lots of things besides the body. But it is correct that the body is on the chair and I'm sitting on the chair. So it's a way of putting it together. Now I'm talking and now I'm lifting something. So it's a way of organizing it. And it's not just a concept, but it functions. I see things, I do things, I experience things. Now, that me is labeled on our experience. So our experience includes this whole mental hologram. That's what we perceive. Usually it's labeled on the 5 attributes we talk about it. So this whole world system of the mandala and all the Buddha figures, and 722 of them. From one point of view, you can say that for the whole thing, including the building, including everything, because the Buddha can manifest everything. when it comes to the actual practice, when you say the mantras, then you have to look at it from a slightly different point of view, otherwise it's very difficult, just conventional. But in any case, we are the whole thing. Now, they represent planets and the stars and astrology signs on one level. They represent the bones of the body and all that sort of thing on another level. They represent all the different channels within the energy system and the chakras. They represent the aggregates, the elements, the sensors, so many different things, which is not unreasonable from a Western point of view, because there's the digestive system, the respiratory system, the circulatory system. We're the whole thing, aren't we? So life's complicated, body's complicated, mind's complicated, we're the whole thing. So this helps us to think in terms of the whole thing. Now, within that, we have the, everybody's a couple in this, except for the 8 figures around the central couple. Everybody else is a couple. And why do we have couples here? The couples are, the Tibetan word for that is mother and father. It's not masculine and feminine. That was Carl Jung's trick of seeing it as representing the masculine and feminine principles of the mind. That's absolutely not in Buddhism. That's a helpful concept perhaps, but that's not what Buddhism is talking about. What it's talking about, the words are mother and father, and just as you need a mother and father to give birth to a baby, you need, most general terms, method and wisdom to give rise to enlightenment. And because Buddhism is not coming from a Puritan background that looks at sexual union as dirty, why not represent it as what a mother and father do to give birth to a baby? So no big deal about that. Nobody goes, ooh, ooh, you know, and thinks it's pornography within its original context. Now, what do they represent in Kalachakra? Well, on one level, of course, bodhicitta and the understanding of voidness, passion and the understanding of voidness, but on a deeper level, on another level, they represent a whole corpus of physical forms Buddha can manifest in a bazillion forms simultaneously. There's a whole corpus of them, a whole bunch of them. And the omniscient mind of the Buddha. And this is what we are, what's represented with these 2 figures. And that I'll explain this. You have body and mind, but within mind, you would have a blissful awareness and the understanding of voidness. So we have these 2 pairs. The blissful awareness is not ordinary orgasm type of bliss, but a very intense, blissful state of mind induced by bringing the energy winds into the central channel. And so that, when you start to bring the energy winds into the central channel, which can be brought on with a blissful state of mind, the blissful state of mind is very helpful because it tends to help the mind get more and more subtle. Of course, the danger is if you don't have the understanding of voidness, you space out. So it has to be with the understanding of voidness where you sort of bliss out. That's not what it's meant. Like being, super high on some drug. But ecstatic, that's not it at all. But this intense state of mind that's very elevated, you describe it as blissful, and is getting more and more subtle and more clarity. that is what you want to focus with on voidness. So the couple represents mind in general and the physical form is manifesting, or on another level is representing blissful awareness and the understanding of voidness. So in Kalachakra, the father is the blissful awareness, which in Kalachakra is called unchanging blissful awareness. And the mother, Vishvamata, mother of diversity, is her name. The mother is representing, on the one hand, physical form, and on the other hand, the understanding of voidness. So they're representing the two of these together. And when we speak about the physical form, it's a devoid form. Sometimes translated as void form. I don't know how Jim is going to translate it. But void here, or I prefer devoid, it doesn't refer to voidness of true findable existence. Few commentaries might explain it like that, but most commentaries don't. What it is devoid of atoms. It's not a form that's made of atoms. It's much more subtle than that. And what is particular, well, first of all, it's an unchanging bliss. What's that referring to? That's referring to there is a stacking. I mean, this is undoubtedly going to come up in this holiness discussion, so I bring it up here. There is, in the course of the day, there are 21,600 karmic breaths. Yeah, that's just conceptual framework.
The announcement is over.
Certainly.
Your name, please.
Certainly. There's 21,600 breaths in a day, which is not unreasonable if you count. It comes to about 4 in a second. Not so unreasonable. And that is in 12 groups, depending on whether it goes primarily through one nostril or the other nostril. And it shifts during the day. And this number is parallel to 360 days in a year times 60 years for the astrological cycle, so 21,600 days. Or within 360 days, Kalachakra divides each day into 60 Kalachakra hours. So again, 21,600. Or you divide the zodiac into 12 signs. Each sign has 60 degrees. Then you have 21,600. So just a way of dividing. So you have the breaths as well. And what you want to do is to stack 21,600 drops. It's a different set of drops. Red and white bodhicitta drops, which are, again, a type of vital energy or something like that. You want to stack melt the white ones from the top, it goes down the bottom, and you have going up from the bottom to the top, and the red ones go from bottom up, and then they stack from the top down, and the sets of 12, halfway through each chakra, so for the 6 main chakras, you get 12 of them, and so on. Now those drops, once they are in the stack of the central channel, they don't move, they stay there, even when you're not totally absorbed on voidness. And so it's not that unchanging blissful awareness is something you have all the time once you start getting it. And where you start getting it in 3 different opinions, it doesn't matter. Either a little bit before the path of non-conceptual cognition of voidness, or at that time, 3 opinions. Once you get that non-conceptual cognition of voidness, then you don't have that all the time, of course, but those drops, so you don't have the unchanging blissful awareness all the time, but the drops stay there. They don't leave the central channels. That's why it's called unchanging blissful awareness. And in Kalachakra, the void form is indicating a very special meditative method for trying to achieve the form bodies of the Buddha. Now, if we speak of what's called the material cause, although that's too material for my taste, an obtaining cause, what comes before that is going to turn into the result, like the seed or the sprout, something like that. So if you talk about the obtaining cause, the material cause, for the mind of the Buddha, it's clear like mind, that we have in our samsaric situation. And it's going to be, for the physical forms of the body, then the subtlest wind. So that's the same as in the Nuttara Yoga Tantra general, and in Kalachakra as well. However, in the Nuttara Yoga Tantra, you actually work with the subtlest winds. Not the most subtle, because you can't really work with it yet, but the level right after that, to make what's called illusory body. Well, you can't do that while you are totally absorbed, while you are working with a conceptual cognition of voidness. You can only work with that when you get a non-conceptual cognition of voidness, clear like mind. These are technical details. The point is that in our practice, way before this stage, in general in Nuttara Yoga, totally absorbed on voidness and total absence. And Holiness put it very, very nicely the other day. I mean, from his own experience, it was wonderful how he explained this. He was explaining the difference between what's called I forget how Jimbo translated it, the implicative and non-implicative negation, or the affirming and non-affirming negation. What's the difference? The difference would be a table without true existence. That's an implicative one. There's no such thing as true existence. There's no such thing as true existence of the table. Is non-implicative. So all this was explaining. When you're meditating, if you were to meditate on voidness as an implicative negation, the way the mind is taking that object of voidness still has a little bit of a hold on something. A table without true existence. You understand, without true existence, but there's still a hold on the table. And so there is a tendency there that you're still going to get caught up in some thing of true existence. And that's why, as always explained, it's a very different way of mentally holding the object, in which you say there's no such thing as the true existence of the table, in which you just totally let go. And that's what you want to have in the voidness meditation. And do that non-conceptually, so without basically an idea of it, not through an idea of it, but without the idea of it. Now, there's a different type of cause for something. But it always explains this a lot, that's why I'm going into this, which is called a similar class cause. And the similar class cause is like, the material or obtaining cause for a clay vase is clay. The unbaked clay, or for bread is the dough. But the similar category, or the similar class cause, would be other breads, the model. So what is the model for a body and mind of Buddha? But the model for a body and mind in the Buddha is the clear light mind itself. Because it's the omniscient mind that has and makes all the appearances, the core body, pure appearances. And so in Kalachakra, when they say, because you find it in the prayers, in the 6-session practice, that, the body and mind are made from the mind. That doesn't mean that they're made from the mind. They still have their own obtaining causes, the subtlest wind and the subtlest mind. But the similar class cause is the same. Similar class cause in both of them is the clear light mind, because the clear light mind has inseparably awareness and appearance, voidness and appearance. And so that makes a big difference in the meditation. Because although you could have both of those when you're non-conceptually focusing on voidness with the clear light mind, what do we do before that when we're doing it conceptually? And when we're doing it conceptually, in our ordinary practice, what's very difficult is to maintain an understanding. Within the understanding of voidness, within voidness, I arise as this Buddha figure. That's often translated misleadingly, like out of voidness. It's not that you leave the understanding of voidness whatsoever. In that understanding, I arise as a Buddha figure. So, if you're working with the understanding that, both the body and the understanding of voidness, the appearance and the understanding of voidness, come from the same model, clear light mind, a little bit easier to keep the two in mind at the same time without losing the understanding of voidness. So there's a slight difference in the way that you do the meditation. These are the major points this whole thing. So usually, no guarantee that always, usually talks about it. So I explained a little bit, so hopefully you won't get too lost.
More about voidness. Voidness the same as awareness without appearances?
Is voidness the same as what?
Awareness without appearances?
No, absolutely not. Voidness is not the same as awareness without appearances. Voidness is the total absence of impossible appearances, possible ways of appearing or existing. It's the total absence of what's impossible. One thing I should mention, because people tend to freak out in these initiations, is something that my own teacher, Serpent Rinpoche, the Kalachakra teacher of His Holiness, often explained, which was that try to keep in mind that this is a little bit like a movie in the sense that it can't get the visualizations in one scene of the movie, and unless you've had a tremendous amount of practice doing this initiation many, many times, there's no way that we can follow and do all these visualizations. They're really complex. If you missed it, go on to the next scene. Don't hold on to the previous scene of the movie and superimpose 2, 3, 4 scenes. Drop it. Go on to the next scene. Very, very important. And doing the visualizations is not an important part of the empowerment. What an empowerment does is it activates the Buddha nature potentials. That's what it's all about. Is to activate these potentials through inspiration and through trying to get some sort of conscious experience of voidness and bliss, thank you very much, during the empowerment. Now, don't wait for a hallelujah. Now I've had voidness and bliss, blissful understanding. Chances are we certainly are not going to have that. But as the third Pension Lama says in his commentary, I think it's the third Pension Lama if I remember, he says that don't worry about it. Just try at the ordinary level to be happy and in a happy state of mind, which means not freaking out at how complex the visualizations are. Think of voidness on whatever level we can understand it. That's sufficient. There's some basis that can then be improved. And that's what you want to work on. You want to have some basis of experience during the empowerment, which, together with the inspiration from His Holiness and from the environment and from being there and all this sort of stuff, motivation and so on, is going to help to activate the Buddha nature potentials that we all have. That's the basis. That's what empowerment does. On that basis, you can gradually improve it through daily practice. That's what it's all about.
Why the Kalachakra is selected, which is so very complex among all of the higher yoga tantras, to share with such large...
Why is Kalachakra chosen, and why does it attract so many people, which it does?
And what is that intrinsic thing that makes it more about world peace? No, why is it more about world peace than any other part of it?
Why is it more about world peace than anything else? Let's wait for the announcement. Thank you, I wanted to talk about it. Buddha can be understood in many different ways. So we have a Hinayana Buddha, presentation of Buddha, that historical figure that lives and dies. Teaches. Then we have a Mahayana presentation, sutra, of a Buddha that has been enlightened long ago, manifests to help everybody, teaches in Moses Peak with zillions of gods and asuras and who knows what, all over space, and he's teaching simultaneously in a million different Buddha fields and so on. That's Mahayana Buddha. That's what we're aiming for with Mahayana. Form body that can manifest all over the place and teach simultaneously everybody. And then in Tantra, Buddha is a manifestation of the clear light mind, doing the same thing. It's a Mahayana Sutra Buddha. So, when it says that Kalachakra was taught by Buddha, wait for the announcement. When we hear that Kalachakra was taught by Buddha, then it's not helpful to think of the historical Buddha, because it's not that the Hinayana Buddha taught Kalachakra. It's the Mahayana Buddha, the Tantra Mahayana Buddha, that taught Kalachakra. And he taught it simultaneously. That's
So I thought the announcements were going on simultaneously.
He taught it simultaneously with teaching the Prajnaparamita Sutras elsewhere. So that means it's all within the context of Madhyamaka. Now, so when he taught it is irrelevant. That's not the point of when he taught it. Now, when did it become actually available for people? And it became available primarily in the 10th century. Now, if we ask where it appeared, because where the lineages come from, two died, two great masters that had visions. So that's a little bit weird from our point of view. But we'll leave that aside, what these visions could possibly mean. But I think that it indicates a Buddha from a clear light mind and manifesting from a clear light mind, within their own clear light minds. So in any case, the area in which it developed was this Kashmir, northern Pakistan, Afghanistan area, primarily the Afghanistan side, because if you went in that direction, there weren't borders like we have now in the country, so the mountains continue in that direction. And in Afghanistan at the time, you had a kingdom which was, it had a long, long history of Buddhism, huge monastery of Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhist monastery, and it had a big population that was mixed Hindu and Buddhist and Muslim and Manichaean, a later development of Zoroastrianism, the Iranian. And this was part of the Abbasid Empire. This was the Arab Empire at the time. It was getting a bit weak, centered in Baghdad. And at that time, everybody, lots of people in the world, the Christians and the Muslims, were all freaked out at the end of the world coming. And so the Christians had it at the turn of the millennium, and the Muslims had it a little bit later, about 100 or so years afterward. Everybody took that really literally, and were waiting for a Messiah and the apocalypse and all this sort of junk. And that idea had already gone into the Hindus from the Zoroastrians as well. The Hindus believed in this as well. And there were these people who came up and said, I'm the Messiah. Now, the big rivals of the Abbasids, the Arabs, were the Fatimid dynasty in Egypt. And they had a guy, their leader, who said he was the Messiah. And the Fatimids in Egypt had another vassal state on the other side of the Abbasid Empire, Pakistan. And so everybody was freaked out in that central area in between, that the end of the world is coming, the apocalypse, and we're going to get a big invasion from, this Messiah's forces, who are basically in Pakistan. And so that was what the whole Kalachakra teaching was, the milieu in which it arose, which was, let's take this situation, and everybody is freaked out, and transform it and make a spiritual path that's parallel to it. And so it's not anti-Muslim, it's not anything like that. So please don't think that, these invading forces are Muslims. It's this fanatic Messiah group that they are using to represent, this historical situation, saying instead of freaking out, use this as an opportunity to follow a spiritual path. A spiritual path will parallel that, because there's the invasion of the karmic winds with the, disturbing emotions and so on, and they're invading Shambhala, that's a clear light mind, means land of great bliss, clear light mind. They're invading, and they, you have to fight them all. And when are they going to come? 1,800 years after Muhammad. So obviously that's not historical, that's to fit into this whole milieu, not this milieu, but this conceptual framework of these numbers, 1800. And they're coming from this fanatic Islamic group, the Messiah. And so they, in that kingdom, the main emphasis was on, now whether it happened historically or not is impossible to say, probably not. But the idea was that everybody in the kingdom would get together in the Kalachakra mandala and become a bunch of brothers and sisters. Then they could form a unified front to face this invasion. So, on an external level, that doesn't mean everybody who comes gives up their religion and becomes Buddhist. It says very clearly, if everybody follows the ethical principles of their own religion, that's what we're talking about. And on an inner level, what we're talking about in terms of the practice is that all these distorted energy winds, these different groups in your kingdom are out of harmony. They're not working together. So bring them together in the Kalachakra empowerment. Get them all to work in harmony so you can dissolve, get rid of these karmic winds, the invaders. That's the whole, what everything represents, this empowerment. The historical reference is this period where everybody's freaking out at the end of the world and these messiahs coming and invading. So it has that history of being given to a large group of people from many, many different backgrounds to establish harmony for world peace, so that people will be together and work harmoniously. And you see it at any of these Kalachakra initiations. People come from all over, and it's a wonderful atmosphere to be with His Holiness, see the teachings, and people aren't arguing with each other and so on. So it helps to establish an atmosphere of harmony and peace, and that's where you get Kalachakra for world peace. Little question.
Yeah.
And I say something about generation and complete stage. I don't like completion. It's not that you're completing something. It's when you're working with everything is now complete from what you've done at the generation stage, so that you can now work with the subtle energy system. Work with the subtle energy system. Remember, we want to get down to the clear light. We want to be able to dissolve the corrosive levels and work with the clear light level of mind. So you need to manipulate and move these energy winds and let them dissolve into the central channel. Now, no way that you can do that without absolute perfect concentration and lots and lots of preparation and stuff. So to be able to do that, you have the generation stage, in which, as I said, we're practicing together everything we learned in the Sutra. So that simultaneously, the 10th form, each attitudes, passion, love, concentration, avoidance, everything at the same time. And we're training our concentration, that single-minded concentration, in a very, very complex way. So that and then on the subtle generation stage, in a tiny dot at here actually, at the mid-brow, that has a complete Kalachakra module in it, 722 days, and from that, 2 drops and 4 inside each of them. Full module, so I believe that's different. And if you can do that, 4 hours, have any mental wandering adults, then you're ready to go on to the next stage. And you have a laser beam-like concentration. And then, instead of just playing around, the energy waves can actually do something. So those are the 2 stages. No way to do the big stage, except just trivializing it and playing around with it. You haven't done the generation stage. Great. Better back to you. She said that, my website, Berzin Archives, that it's very helpful, and so why don't I use this occasion to give a plug to it? So now we have the commercial. I lived in India for 29 years, translating for His Holiness' teachers, occasionally translating for His Holiness, had an unbelievable opportunity to study with the best of the best, and not just in the Hindu tradition, but from all 4 traditions. And so I have this enormous amount of material, about 30,000 pages of my so-called collected works, Berzin Archives. And I've never done anything else in my life except this. And so I have it all, and I want to make it available to people because otherwise when I die, it will all instantly transform into garbage and thrown away by people who clear up my apartment. So I made this website, and in this website I'm trying to make everything available. All the translations, all the notes, all the, anything I studied with my teachers, I did a rough translation of, and my lectures as well. So, and my books as well. Snowline very kindly gave permission to put my ebooks on there. For free. Everything's for free. And so now it's been available for 2.5 years. It's called Berzin Archives, that's one word.com. And it has about roughly 400 articles, anywhere from, 3 to 15, 20 pages, regular paper pages. That's about 10% of my material. And it's being translated into 8 other languages. So, not extensively. So this is the Berzin Archives, and if anybody, now here's the plug, if anybody, aside from financial gain, which I feel slightly embarrassed to say, pass around the kitty to some people I need to pay to do this. Besides that, what is really necessary more and more are volunteers to help with this. There's transcription of pages. All the handwritten material has been scanned already, but the problem is that it's in handwriting. My handwriting is not great. And, well, tiny doesn't matter because it's scanned, so you can enlarge it, so you can print it out. That's not the problem, I don't think. The problem is native English speakers who can read English handwriting. I very rarely teach in the English-speaking world. I live in Europe, and I prefer to teach, follow the tradition of my own teacher, Sir Rinpoche, which is one of His Holiness's teachers, Kalachakra teacher, to go to places that are remote, where people don't have so much access. So I prefer to teach in the Eastern European countries, or the Soviet Union, Latin America, and so on. So I don't have so many people that are native English speakers that can read handwriting. So if there are volunteers, people who would like to help with this, that would be great. That would be great. Within Berzin Archives, up on the top, it says, what is it, author or something like that. I really don't remember what it says, volunteer or help or something like that. If you click that, you're going to get a screen that says, if you'd like to volunteer to help or give some financial donation, click here, and then you'll get, an address, info@berzinarchives.com. Send you a questionnaire so that we have some idea of your background, what you're able to do, and then join the team.
I found the website very useful. I used it to look up why the vows don't say Kalachakra for more than 7 days.
Why would the vows?
I don't stay at a office residence for more than 7 days.
In the succession.
Yeah, not to stay in. Oh, yeah. I mean, there's lots of stuff in the website. So there's a lot of stuff on the vows and so on. So you can get explanations of the vows based on several commentaries and oral teachings.
I still don't understand.
Oh, not to stay for more than 7 days in the home of a Shravaka. We're not talking here about, some really nice Vipassana practitioner or being in Southeast Asia and people who follow Theravada Buddhism. That's absolutely not the meaning here. What we're talking about is staying in the company of people who are going to turn you away from your Mahayana practice by saying, that's really stupid, you're really dumb for working to help everybody, why don't you just focus on yourself and save yourself? Or people who are non-Buddhists who would say, what are you doing? This is stupid, that's a waste of time, make fun of you, mock you, criticize you all the time. You don't want to stay more than 7 days unless you're in the army and have to stay in an army barracks, which then is very difficult. But you don't want to stay with them because they're going to discourage you. You are undoubtedly, unless you're a super strong practitioner, going to get infected by that attitude. So you don't want to stay with those people. But this is why it's so important, even if you are in the army or you're in a hospital, keep your practice private. Secret means private. Nobody needs to know about what you do. What are you doing? I'm sitting here, I'm daydreaming. Nobody needs to know what you're doing. I'm reading. You don't have to set up a Hollywood scene, incense and candles and like that. You sit in full lotus. You become a little bit bored and adapt to the situation. Airplane, train. We really need to end soon. So maybe last question.
Could you say something about reading the noble words? The vow of the noble words.
Noble words?
Ignoble words. It sounds like that would mean no more reading novels or something, or what exactly?
Oh, the thing about the various types of activities that we want to avoid. One of the things that we want to avoid is, if I can be gross, becoming a CNN junkie or something like that, in which you spend all your time glued to stuff that's going to distract you and going to discourage you. So whether it's reading, novels, pornographic literature, TV, whatever. What you want to do is not lose the main focus in your life, which doesn't mean to become a fanatic. We need to relax, we need to entertain. But when you find yourself putting your major focus on, well, I can't meditate unless my favorite TV show is on, then you have problems.
A middle way is balance.
Balance. Not let yourself be discouraged and infected by too much samsara. Right. So, let's make this a little bit of a dharmic thing. Dedication. So we think whatever understanding, whatever positive forces come from this, we don't want it to just be a positive karma that, contributes to being able to speak around the coffee table about Kalachakra, but may it act as a cause for reaching enlightenment to benefit all.